Book 101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's the author of a new book, Moses Malone, The Life of a Basketball Prophet, none other than Mr. Paul Knepper. Welcome, Mr. Paul, and Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yeah, well, first, Daniel, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm originally from New York. Moved out to Austin, Texas, I guess 12 years ago now, and I was originally a lawyer, which I did for I guess about 12 years, and then kind of moved into writing. I did some writing for a startup website for a while that no longer exists, and then I wrote for Bleacher Report for a while, covering basketball. My first book was called The Knicks of the '90s, and my second book, Moses Malone: The Life of a Basketball Prophet, just came out a few days ago.
And congratulations for sharing your talents to the world. And of course, your knowledge and wisdom, Mr. Paul. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this book.
Thank you.
Yes. So let's start with that incredible title, Basketball Prophet. In what way was Moses Malone a prophet?
So he made a few, I guess you call prophecies in his life about basketball. The first was when he was 14 years old. He wrote on a piece of paper and that he was going to be the best high school player in the country by the end of his junior year in high school. And he folded that piece of paper up and he tucked it inside the family Bible and left it there. And remarkably, that came true. It was a crazy prediction at the time because he'd only been playing basketball for a few months. He wasn't very good yet. There wasn't a whole lot of talent in his hometown of Petersburg, Virginia. So nobody would have ever imagined that he would be the best high school player in the country, but he was. And then when he accomplished that goal, um, at the end of his junior year in high school, he wrote another note again, tucked it inside the Bible that said, "I'm going to be the first player to go directly from high school to pro basketball." And that also seemed kind of crazy at the time. Nobody had done it. Nobody was expecting that to happen, but somehow that prophecy came true too. And the last big one is probably his most famous was when he was with the Philadelphia 76ers in 1983 before the playoffs started. He famously said, "Fo, fo, fo," which was his way of saying 4-4-4, meaning we're going to sweep all three rounds in the playoffs and we're not going to lose a game, which had never been done before. And that he didn't fulfill that completely, but they came close. They only lost one game, which had never been done before, and that line became quite famous. And then the title also I think is just kind of a play on the biblical Moses.
Interesting indeed, Mr. Paul. Interesting. And the phrase faux 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 is legendary. How did the prediction encapsulate not just his confidence, but his entire understanding of the game and his team's destiny?
Yeah, but I think they had a great team, really great team. Julius Erving, a few other Hall of Famers, Bobby Jones, Maurice Cheeks, um, and so I think the faux 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 really kind of captured Moses' approach to things too. He was in some ways a very complex man, but in other ways a very simple man, and his speech tended to be somewhat simple. He would uh, he sometimes he'd speak kind of in short bursts and get a lot. He would get his point across in very few words, and I think that was a good example of that.
Indeed, and we know Moses as a relentless rebounder. But your biography suggests there was much more. What is that most common misconception about Moses Malone that you wanted to shatter with this book?
I think, the big thing is that he was kind of gruff, and I think a lot of people thought he was unfriendly and unintelligent. Um, and that's because he was gruff with the media. He was a very private person and didn't like talking in the media and wouldn't expose. He didn't really show his real personality. He didn't show what he was really like when there was no one around. And so I learned a lot about him researching about what he was like when the cameras weren't on and when nobody was holding a microphone in his face. And it turns out, one, he was a very intelligent man. Both as a basketball player and off the court. Um, Another thing is he had a great sense of humor. He loved playing practical jokes on his teammates. And a third thing I would say that I think most people don't know is he was a much loved teammate. All of his teammates spoke very highly of him. He was a mentor to many different players, most notably Akeem Olajuwon and Charles Barkley. So he was actually a kind of a friendly, fun, intelligent, gentle guy off the court. But unfortunately, fans never really got to see that.
And Mr. Paul, Moses made a monumental jump straight from high school to the ABA. How did this unorthodox path, bypassing college, fundamentally shape his game and his tough professional mentality?
That's a good question. I think he faced a lot of challenges very early on that he might not have faced had he gone to college. He kind of had to grow up fast by going straight from high school to pros. And then when he got to the pros, it was uh, he found himself in a lot of unstable situations. It was kind of he started with the Utah Stars of the ABA, and a little over a year after he began with them, the team folded, and then he went to the Spirits of St. Louis of the ABA, and a few months later, that team and the whole league folded. And he went over to the NBA, and he was with the Portland Trailblazers for training camp. And at the end of training camp, they traded him to Buffalo. Buffalo had him for 1 week, and they traded him to Houston. And so I think all that change. I think, frankly, I think that could have destroyed the confidence of a lot of people. But I think in a way, it kind of made Moses stronger because he was exposed to so much of the uncertainty of life as a professional athlete, and the business, the ruthless business side of the sport at such a young age. And so I think that forced him to kind of grow up quickly and understand what professional basketball was all about.
You've said rebounding was his prophecy. What was his philosophical or technical approach to rebounding that made him so dominant? And how did he see the game in a way that allowed him to predict where the ball would go?
Yeah, he had he had some natural talents, physical talents that certainly had a lot to do with it. He moved extremely well. He was very agile for a man his size. Um, he was very quick. He could jump not just high, but he could jump quickly. So he could get off the ground quickly and come back down and get back up again. Um, but he also had an incredible instinct to read where the ball was going to come off the backboard and off the rim. And I talked to a lot of people who said it was almost like there were magnets on his hand, and the ball was just attracted to him. But he described it once that he kind of saw he saw the angles in his head, almost like an engineer or something. He was able to kind of visualize how the ball was gonna ricochet off the basket, and and then once he saw that, a lot of people I talked to, they talked about all those things. They talked about his physical gifts, his instincts, and but they all came back to the same thing, was that his desire. Yes, he had quick feet. Yes, he was agile. Yes, he had great instincts. But in the end, Moses just wanted the ball more than everyone else. A lot of people told me that it just came down to that. He just was relentless in his pursuit of the basketball and wouldn't stop. And he'd just wear you out by the end of the game.
Interesting, Mr. Paul. He moved to the 76 years, was the missing piece for a championship star franchise. How did this presence and mentally fundamentally change the culture of that team and finally get Dr. J things right?
Yeah, I think that I came across a great quote from Pat Riley, who was the Lakers coach at the time, and he said, Moses was the reigning MVP winner when he joined the 76ers. So they were a team that went to the finals the year before without him, and then they add him, the MVP. Um, but Riley felt that his Moses's contributions were as much psychological as they were on the court, as they were basketball wise, and he felt that the Sixers had lost in the finals three times in the past 6 years. And Riley said I think the way you put it is that takes years off your basketball life. The psychological pain of losing in the finals is so devastating that it takes a lot out of you. And I think having it happen three times kind of sapped them of their confidence a little bit. And then in comes Moses, who he didn't have any of that baggage. He hadn't lost he lost once with Houston, but he hadn't been through that with the 76ers. He hadn't been through those years, year after year of devastation. So he wasn't kind of scarred as they were. And he came in with a fresh mindset and a fresh attitude and a great deal of confidence. And I think his teammates kind of fed off of that confidence, and he gave them new life after those devastating losses.
A new life indeed, a new inspiration for sure. He was not a vocal captain in the traditional sense. What was his unique style of leadership and how did he command respect and elevate his teammates without fiery speeches?
Yeah, I think he was one of those guys who led by example. Moses, there were several seasons where he played all 82 games. He played many times. He played hurt with broken bones or with the flu or different injuries, um, and he always played hard and he always practiced hard. And so I think when you see a player of his caliber, guys won three MVP awards working that hard, it kind of puts it makes you want to work hard too, or feel like you have to work hard to keep up with him. Um, and I think the other thing he did as a leader was he really what teammates loved about Moses was, in spite of all the MVPs and the championship and everything, he remained very humble. And I think that's why guys liked him and looked up to him, because he never asked to be treated differently. He never wanted any special perks. A lot of guys told me, Moses would treat the 12th man at the end of the bench the same way he treated Dr. J. And so when you have a guy with that kind of resume treating you with respect and treating you as an equal, um, I think you tend to respect him in return and kind of look up to him.
Well, that will be again another achievement for sure. Moses was famously reserved with the media. What did you discover about his personality, his passion, and his life away from a spotlight that would surprise fans?
Um, I think I go back to his relationship with people, because he never had a great relationship with the media, and that was all people really saw. But he was a very loyal, very devoted friend, and he had a lot of close friends. I found it really interesting. I've talked to a lot of athletes, and typically after their careers are over, they'll stay in touch with maybe two or three old teammates, who they talk to somewhat regularly. Moses had dozens of people that he spoke to, teammates, old teammates, opponents, former coaches of his. Um, and I found that really interesting. How many guys he remained close to, because he really valued he really valued the concept of a teammate. He really valued their friendship, and those relationships were very important to him. Um, and so, that's just something you never got the sense by watching him, certainly on the court or doing the rare interviews that he did.
Mr. Paul, in your interview with a former teammate, what was the most poignant or revealing story you heard about what it was like to have Moses Malone as a brother in arms?
Um, this guy, Franklin Edwards, who was on the 1982-83 76ers team, told me um, it was something really that happened after their careers. A number of times, excuse me, a number of times, Franklin Edwards, he was a role player. He got very little playing time, but almost every year he got called to attend a signing. They did a signing with all the members of the 1982-83 76ers team. They'd show up at an event and they'd sign autographs. And one year, Franklin asked the guy who organized it. Franklin said to him very honestly, he said, whatever the guy's name was, hey, why do you pay me and some of these other guys to come to this event? He said, nobody's paying for our autographs. Nobody's coming here to see us. And the guy told him Moses requires it. And Franklin's like said, what do you mean? He said Moses said he wouldn't come here to do signings related to the 76ers unless all the members of that 1982-83 team were here and were financially compensated as well. And Franklin Edwards was really touched by that, because it's just obviously something he didn't need to do. And I think that's really indicative of, again, the kind of teammate that Moses was. That he was always looking out for his teammates. He was always thinking about his teammates, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And I think it's especially rare among superstars like Moses.
Mr. Paul, as an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
My short-term goal is to sell a lot of books right now. um,
Definitely a best selling author.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm trying to, promote the book and hopefully sell a lot of books. That's the short term goal. The long term goal, um, to keep doing this. This is my second book now, and I've loved it. I love the process. It's frustrating at times. It's lonely at times, but it's also extremely rewarding. And so I hope that I can continue, writing books probably about sports for many years to come.
Many years to come. Good luck to your goals, Mr. Paul, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Oh man. Um, I think you just have to. I mean, the big thing is you have to be passionate about it. If you want to write a book, you have to find a subject you're really excited about, because this book took me close to 2.5 years. So if you're not, if you're only mildly interested, don't bother. You have to really. It has to be the kind of thing that you're thinking about it when you're laying in bed at night, and you start thinking about it when you're in the shower. It has to consume you, otherwise it'll become overwhelming. Um, and then just work hard, right? You just have to work hard. You just have to always try and make that next phone call and try and find that one more source for your book, or who might have an extra piece of information. And yeah, just always make that extra call. Always keep digging for more information. Don't stop. If one path is cut off, then find another way to get the information that you need.
Thank you for that advice, Mr. Paul. And can you please recommend a book or books that influenced your journey?
Yeah, I would. I mean, one person that um, I kind of mentioned briefly before, Moses Malone was a mentor to Akeem Olajuwon, obviously another fantastic player. And a woman named Miran Fader wrote a book about Akeem that came out last year called Dream. And there's some stuff on Moses in there because they had a nice relationship. But the book is fantastic. Olajuwon is just a fascinating subject. Uh, he didn't pick up a basketball until about a couple months before his 17th birthday, and in Lagos, Nigeria. And less than a year later, he had a Division I scholarship to a big time university in the United States, and then went on to become one of the greatest players ever. So he just had a fascinating story, and Mirren is a wonderful writer, and between writer and subject, it just made for a great book if you're into basketball.
Well, thank you for that recommended book, Mr. Paul. And tell us, the book delves into his relationship with his mother. But what role did his father play in his life, and how did that relationship influence him?
His father played zero role in his life. His father,
Zero.
yeah, I mean, his father left when he was just about 2 years old. His mother kicked the father out of the house because he was drinking too much, and he Moses never really saw him again. He wasn't a part of his life going forward, and so the only role I could think he played was that maybe he kind of taught Moses how not to be a father, right? Maybe Moses was motivated. No one ever told me this specifically, but maybe Moses was motivated not to be the kind of father that his father was, because there really was no relationship there.
Interesting, Mr. Paul. And what was the most surprising or previously unknown fact you uncovered about Moses during your research for this book?
Um, hmm, that's a good question. Um, I thought it was really funny that Moses, he initially didn't play basketball when he was young. He played football and baseball,
Hmm.
because he thought basketball was a sissy game. So he did. I thought that was really funny. I never knew that, and it's funny because he was such a tough physical player on the floor. He played anything. I mean, he was far different from a sissy, but that's what he originally thought. So I thought that was funny.
Definitely funny, funny indeed. So, Mr. Paul, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my Bible verses 101 in first season, book 101 review in first season, comedy 101 in second season, and food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 fourth season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101. Love Letters in fourth season, and Movie 101 Review Music 101 in fourth season as well, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Mr. Paul, if you could have asked Moses one question that remains unanswered, what would it be?
Oh wow, I never really thought about that. That's a great question. Um, um, I'd like to know if he ever really planned on going to college, because he agreed to go to college, and then he ended up leaving and going to the pros, and I don't know if that was just a way to get more money from the pros, or he was just waiting for the pros to make an offer, or I'm curious if he ever really was interested in going to college.
Definitely. And Mr. Paul Knepper, thank you so much for sharing Moses Malone to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your Moses Malone?
Yeah, the book is available now. It's in bookstores. It's you can get it online at Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. And please, if you buy it, reach out and let me know what you think of it. I'd love to hear from you.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Paul Knepper because if you support him for sure, more and more, Moses Malone will rise. So, Mr. Paul, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.